you train people that you're available 24/7. It's your own fault.
That's something I'm currently struggling with.
I think everyone struggles with it in some form.
You got to believe.
Welcome to Girl Get Real. I'm Sammy, and I'm sitting here with Robyn today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. Let's start off how we met.
We met in a very vulnerable situation. It was an event by a really cool group, Babes Build Community.
Yep.
And I don't think either of us really knew what we were getting ourselves into when we went to that event.
I definitely did not. I thought it was a girls-only event, to be honest with you. And then when I showed up to the dock and there was a bunch of men there, not to put down the men, but I was like, okay.
I didn't even know what the speaker was all about, really. Like, he was Joyfully Ethan.
Joyfully Ethan, what a guy.
Yeah.
That was great.
But the conversation got deep really fast, in a good way.
It did.
Super vulnerable, super raw. You and I just connected over a couple of those major, deep,
We did. Your
altering details.
husband was there.
Yeah.
And I think he cried at one point when you were sharing your, if you knew me, you would know that,
Yeah.
which we won't get into because it was
Very confident.
bonded into the group. But I'm pretty sure he cried. And that was so like moving. I was like, wow, okay, we're going there. I was so nervous for my turn.
I was just so nervous for my turn. I honestly was hoping that something would happen and we wouldn't have to finish.
I know. When you get the anxiety, you're sitting around a circle and you're like, okay, wait, oh, I go now? And yeah, it was good. It was really good. And man, they made the best pizza I've ever had. Alana from Bicycle Pizza.
So good.
I think it was like peach.
It's the dough. I feel like their dough is incredible.
Yeah, it was like peach and honey and
Basil or something.
oh my goodness, it was the best pizza I've
So-
ever had. Yeah.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah. So that's how we met, which
Yeah.
was really cool. And then I think we just had an instant connection. I think some of it also was like our childhood stuff. You just moved from Squamish, you're in marketing.
You're in marketing.
Yeah,
You told me about your podcast idea that day,
I did.
and now it's a thing.
It's a thing. This is podcast Girl Get Real round 2. So tried it out the first time and I learned a lot. And I'm so excited that you get to be on the first episode today. Today, we are going to just probably even get a little bit deeper into stuff. And we're going to talk about confidence, setting boundaries. And you also have a marketing company that's called Switch House. And then you have your own personal brand. How do you feel about setting boundaries in your work life? Your Switch House company is a direct-to-consumer meta ads. So you have a lot of brands that you work with and, a lot going on.
It wasn't always a direct-to-consumer based agency. So I actually started my social media marketing agency back in 2015.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give a bit of a background. And I solely focused on organic social media. And we adapted a lot over the last 10 years. Originally, my husband wasn't part of it. He had a different company. In 2018, he sold his company. And I went to him and I was like, I'm dying. I'm up to my eyeballs in work. And I'm going to start letting people down.
Yeah.
That is probably when I should have realized I need boundaries.
Right. And the burnout was hitting.
Yeah, but I still didn't realize that was like the problem. And I could have been a way more effective and efficient. But needless to say, everything was going well and people wanted to work with us. And January 2020, we relaunched as a full agency. So we took it away from my own personal brand, which was Socially Robyn, and we moved it into Switch House.
And I think we talked about this a little bit, but when you were Socially Robyn, you did a ton of speaking events, you taught courses, you were out there, and you kind of let me know at one point that you kind of burnt out and then that created like a social anxiety and you kind of also
Yeah.
stopped doing all that. And like recently you're kind of getting back into speaking. Like, are you still building up that confidence to get back out there? Like, are you comfortable or?
I went through a big life shift. So January 2020, we launched Switch House as a full e-commerce, branding, everything agency. And little did we know it was a great time to be launching something like that. Like,
Yeah.
everyone needed to be online more. So many people needed online stores. So 2020 really took me from, I have help and my husband and I are going to do this together, and we had a team. Next thing you know, we were busier than ever. That was booming. I was struggling. You train people that you're available 24/7. It's your own fault.
Yeah.
But you also start to resent those people and those customers and everything that you're doing because you reply at 10 o'clock at night.
I'm currently having this issue. This is a great topic for today because I think I'm going to learn something. I really resonate with like, I want to be available all the time to people. And often when you are a creative person, once you get hooked onto something, you kind of can't let it go. So you're like on.
You just want to say yes to everything because you get excited about it.
But then when
Bites you in the ass later.
yeah, well, that's what I mean. So at times, it's really exciting to be fully immersed with your clients. And then when things are going smoothly, it's like, yeah, you almost created uh, a monster because now they expect you to be on 24/7 because that's what you were giving in the beginning. How to reel that back and not build resentment and, still maintain like a healthy client relationship with them. Yeah, that's something I'm currently struggling with.
I think everyone struggles with it in some form. Eventually, you realize, or something happens in your life that makes you realize. We got to a point in our business and life where things were going great. We had the team, but like I said, I was struggling in the background, and I was struggling because I had a chronic illness that I had been trying to ignore for years. I got diagnosed when I was 27. My specialist doctors, they all kept being like, if you want to have kids, you need to get yourself under control. You need to understand what the realities are of this disease. I have endometriosis, and I was diagnosed by surgery at 27. And so when I hit 30, 31 years old, people were saying, you should freeze eggs, you should do this. And I'm like, I just finished paying off school debt. I'm in the middle of a business that I've invested a lot in. Like, I'm not paying for all that stuff. It'll be fine. Fast forward, my husband and I get married at 33 years old for me. We start struggling with infertility. I have to go back in for my second surgery. I almost lose my right ovary from it. And
Wow.
all of these different things are what threw me into, I need to start focusing on myself. I have given so much of myself to everyone else for way too long.
That was the big wake up call.
Huge wake up call for me.
It's interesting how things kind of crash down on us to, yeah, give us that wake up call. And, often it can be a health concern. So, what are you doing now to take care of your health? I know you work out. I see you on Instagram all the time posting these crazy amazing meals. So, what do you do right now to like manage your health?
I actually had my second surgery at 33 years old at the end of 2020, mid-COVID. And then we've been trying the last little while for 4 years. So you guys are gonna figure out how old I am. I had a miscarriage at 36, and that's when I really just like shut down and I pushed everybody out, and that's when my boundaries fully came into play.
Yeah.
And that was 3 years ago. We ended up restructuring our company again, not because the company needed it, but because we needed it for our lifestyle. We decided to really niche down in our business and say, look, we're not going to do the organic anymore. We are fully investing our agency into direct to consumer meta advertising for Shopify brands.
Yeah.
It's black and white. We made you this much money. Done deal, right? How do you argue with that? Here's your return on ad spend. This is where we're going. So we fully reset ourselves up in that era of advertising. And what that allowed us to do was have a lot more free time.
Right.
We decided to move to a new city to get fresh perspective, restart after the miscarriage, just try something new. We'd both been in Squamish together for 10 years. I grew up in Squamish. I was looking for change.
Yeah.
So once we moved here, I actually could not figure out why I had so much free time.
And so that's helped you with your health.
Huge.
You have time to prep food. You have time to
Yeah.
go to your workouts. You walk your dog, who's adorable. And I see you guys also go and do a lot of like networking, but kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, like kind of like spiritual connection stuff. Like,
I really got into meal prepping last year. I've never been a cook. I don't know where it really came from.
you do a really good job. You do a good job.
Other than wanting to get more protein and wanting to have anti-inflammatory foods in my diet for my disease and all of that, right? And I just started noticing my productivity, my focus, my sleep, it was all getting so much better.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that every time I've ever gone for a blood test, they're always like, "Oh, there's a lot of inflammation in your blood and blah, blah, blah," right? I went for 2 different blood tests last fall because just checking up on everything, I had a little bit of pain happening, and both times the doctors came out and they were like, "Your blood work is pristine."
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, "I have never heard that." They're like, "Whatever you're doing is working."
This is amazing. This is amazing. I'm so happy for you. But I also have to ask you a question. I was watching Netflix over the weekend, and there was this new documentary on there called Apple Cider Vinegar.
Okay.
And it's actually a tale of a girl who turns into a fraud. But I think the idea was there. She ended up developing this app called the Whole Pantry, and it was to heal your body with foods. She lied about having disease that she didn't have to kind of gain attention.
Gosh.
You should really watch it. It's really interesting. But I think why I'm bringing this up is like I actually am a chef by trade.
Oh, did not know that.
You didn't know that? I went to culinary school when I was 21. I cooked when I was super young.
That makes so much sense based on the types of brands that you work with sometimes.
Oh, yeah. My clients that own restaurants, I love. I love the food photography. I think I get really into it because I'm passionate about food. You know, I like the detox that food can do for you. So anyhow, I think that's really cool that you have the time to make food for you and your husband and do all the things that you need to do to be on your top of your game, right?
I
Um,
think the biggest thing that we've really realized is when we niched down and really figured out our service offerings for our business, we didn't need to be on 24/7 because we don't have a whole slew of things that we're offering people and we're not juggling 1,000 balls. We're juggling 3 or 4 balls. And I love the way that our routines are now. I wake up, my first thing is I have my glass of lemon water. My treat to that, I call it, is then I get my coffee. I sit down and I check out everyone's ads are doing, who's up, who's down, what needs some tweaking, optimizing, check in with the team on Slack about it. We have our team members in different time zones and places. So the first part of my day is like the part I love, which is looking at what we're doing for our clients,
The
the money that
analytics.
we're making for them, right?
yeah.
And then I usually by like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I'm out working out. I'm taking the dog for a run. I'm doing something for myself. The flexibility of lifestyle has really shifted how we live.
I'm learning so much right now by this conversation. Well, I do branding and marketing and I dabble in social media management, but I feel like I've been offering too many services to everybody, like my skill sets from here to here. I started my company in 2020 and I owned a company with my husband at the time, but we're no longer together. After the divorce, I said, you know what, I'm going to put all my energy back into my branding company. And I've been swirling around what feels right, what do I want to offer, what drains my time and energy. Hearing you say that you niched out and you have all this time, I get it because I follow you and I'm like, this is so fabulous. Like right now, I'm not eating until 3 o'clock in the afternoon sometimes. Like
That was me.
yesterday I picked up my son from school and I was like, I'm actually starting to wither away. I actually threw some like chicken in the oven. I was literally standing in my kitchen eating chicken. They didn't even put anything with it. And I was like, wow, things need to change in my life. So I really appreciate you because you're a perfect example of honing in, niching out, finding the support, taking your health seriously, and it's working for you. Like we all have bad days. We have days where
It's not perfect.
it's not perfect. Maybe you didn't get your workout, you didn't get your run.
I'm still always late for things. It's something I need to work on.
Yeah, but you're late, but you're probably not feeling as like anxious, frazzled.
No, honestly, I just sleep better. And I think that the sleeping is something that we all underestimate so much.
Yeah.
Because when you sleep better, everything's better in the morning. I don't know. I wake up in the morning now and I have never been someone that meditates. I am too fidgety. I'm too ADHD. I have a million things on my mind. But somebody actually said to me, Courtney, who you met.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
Courtney.
she's awesome. She's like, I meditate in the morning before I get out of bed. I put my headphones beside the bed and I do it before I fully wake up my body.
Yeah.
And it works. It actually works. And I've been doing it every day. Some mornings I use the Open app. Some mornings I do a 25-minute one if I don't have any big meetings happening too quickly. Or other mornings I do a 5 or 10-minute one. But it's something. And I feel like it gives me such a pep in my step for the day.
Oh, yeah. I've been doing that for probably over 10 years. Speaking of ages, when I hit 30, I started reading lots of books. Some of them are here, like The Power of Now. And then I really got into listening to podcasts and also meditation. So for 10 years, sometimes it just serves me because I'll wake up at 3 in the morning and I'm like, I need to get back to sleep. So it will just be something a little bit more gentle. Depending on what time I'm up, it can range in like my need. So sometimes also I'm like, okay, I really need some motivation today. So it will be like more motivation based. And I'm like, okay, here's the pep talk I need. Thank God for you too. And this is why boundaries help. So I need to be in bed by 10. I do like to wake up and do that meditation, and people are like, well, why don't you just turn your phone off, or do you not have your phone just in your room? And I'm like, well, because I need to wake up and put my meditation on first thing in the morning. That's why my phone is with me. I understand, but also
I don't want to step out of bed to go have to get it because now I've just woken up my body too much. Like, I want it right there. Grab it. Right.
I also feel like I don't need to have client conversations at 10 p.m.
No.
My good brain is like, again, after that meditation, after the morning coffee, I'm like an early bird. I do like to get things going, but at 10 a.m. my brain is done. And I like to set some rules and boundaries, but
It's so hard. But this is something that I've been saying lately. I actually listened to a podcast and they said something similar to it, but it just so resonated with me. And they said, what built my business is what almost destroyed my business. And that was being on 24/7 and training people that was okay.
how do we turn things back around gently?
I'm an Aquarius. I can be pretty ruthless.
I'm an Aquarius too.
Yeah, our birthdays are very close together. I can be pretty ruthless, and that's something else I'm trying to work on, but I just have trained people that I don't get back to my texts very quickly.
Okay,
I just stopped. Even with clients, sometimes I'm like, and I'll take what they text me, and I'll put it in an email and write it to them.
yeah,
My reply, like later that day.
scheduled send.
Yeah.
Some people need to learn that one.
100.
We don't need to have this conversation this time. Clients can do that. They can put it in an email and send it for first thing in the morning.
Don't get me wrong. I did it the other day. I was helping put together a radio commercial script for a client. And I was texting the guy at the radio station earlier that day. And then that night, the customer got back to me about the time they could come. And I sent it to him by email or text. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to email this to you. That was reactive. So I caught myself in it, right? Because I just became the person that frustrates me. We're not perfect. We're all trying to figure it out as we go. Even my friends, I don't write them back all the time. In the middle of the day, I really try to keep my focus where it needs to be. I write them back later that night and I'll be like, hey, sorry, I was in meetings all day. I had a crazy day. And then I reply to their message. And they all get it eventually. And the ones that don't get it, that's on them.
I get it. We all need to catch up on things at certain times, or let's say the weekend, and lots of people don't work on the weekend, and I respect that. And actually recently, someone that I work with, it's happened both ways for me. I've had it come my way and I just quickly respond and say, I'll get to this on Monday at this time. And then I actually reached out to someone on the weekend and they were really great. They're like, you know what? I think that's amazing. I don't typically work on the weekend. I protect my family time, and I just had respect. And
Appreciate.
I
so
appreciated
much
it.
appreciation
Yeah,
for that.
and it was fine. It wasn't anything that was pressing. So boundaries take practice, and they're
It's a constant
sometimes
work in progress.
they're uncomfortable because I did grow up being a little bit of a people pleaser, and so that's been a struggle for me. This isn't a New Year's resolution, but once 2025 hit, I am being a little bit more firm. I am finding that sometimes I have to say it a few times. A few people have pointed out to me, I said, what do you do for boundaries? They're like, I don't respond. And I'm like, oh, okay, I need to stop responding so hard for me, because I feel like once I see something, that's when my ADHD starts going, and I'm like,
Oh,
I
yeah,
need to figure this out.
If I stop and respond to a text, I've just lost my whole train of thought in what I was doing, and it's gonna take me another 20 minutes to get back into where I was. It's for me at the end of the day because I wanna be the best I can be for everyone else, but I have to be at my best. And
100%.
I think this is something I posted the other day on my Instagram where it said, "I have always been a yes person, giving away way too much of myself, and now I'm a 'I'll get back to you later' person." And
I
the
love it.
reason why I say, "Let me check my calendar," or "I'll get back to you, I'm just in the middle of something," even if I'm not, it's because, like we said earlier, I get so excited about ideas. I've sat on boards, I've volunteered, I've done all these things because other people asked me, and I was too afraid to say no. Or I get excited about it, and I'm just like, "Yeah, I wanna be part of that." But if I let myself go home, sit back, think about it for the night, do I really have time for it? Do I wanna have time for it? Am I as excited as I think I'm gonna be once I'm in it?
Yeah.
Right? And then I can come up with a way better response, right?
Yeah.
Or like, "You know what? I'm not gonna fully be in, but I can do this little piece for you,"
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I think, people need to respect that. When you say, I will get back to you, all that is saying is, yeah, I need time to focus and be present with you. And in the
Totally.
world today, I mean, that's a respectable thing to say. And I think that, people will realize, yeah, like, let's calm down, let's get out of the hustle and come together when we can be present.
Yeah, being present is so big. And you know what? I think going back to confidence, boundaries come when your confidence is a bit higher too, I think. So for me, you're probably the same. Go back for me 10 years when I first started my business, my confidence wasn't high. I had a lot on the line. I just started a business. I was trying to prove myself. So my confidence isn't fully there yet. Fast forward 7 years, my confidence is higher. I've restructured my business. I'm making people a lot of money. My confidence is there and I can put those boundaries in place.
I'm so proud of you. I think we have only known you for like 9 months, but I'm like super proud of you. That's amazing. And it's like taught me a lot, because I just went through a lot in the last 3 years and I lost my confidence. I think I had a false confidence, if that makes any sense, because people always perceive me to be very strong
Oh,
and
everybody
confident.
says that to me too. I feel like we're, again, Aquarius, independent, stubborn. So people perceive us as these like confident, strong women, but behind the scenes, we are very codependent people.
Yeah.
And but that's behind the scenes.
Yeah, and so I think, I'm 42 now, and it's not my fault. Like, when you're 20 and you're 30, you're, like, learning all this stuff, and so I think some of my foundation was built on kinda like a false confidence that I maybe thought I would just make up for one day, and then, my world came crashing down when I needed to exit a marriage and a business partnership
Huge life shift.
and, become a single mom and try to figure out my career, because my career was wrapped around something else. And it was funny because I like thought I knew who I was, but that process teaches you like really to hone in like who you are. And I've been spending a lot of time working on building my confidence. Boxing has been one of the
I love
biggest
boxing.
things that has taught me confidence. I started boxing 2.5 years ago at Teddy's Fitness in Sydney. It was the fitness I never knew I needed. I've always been active, but boxing is just like now my life. The day I went in there and I did my first boxing thing, Anna filmed me. And then I watched
For like progress.
yeah, like, just for fun, because the gym was just opening, and
Okay.
so we just kinda did it for fun, and I watched the video back, and I looked at my body language, and I was like, "Holy, this is" I didn't even recognize myself. I was like, "This is someone who has 0 confidence."
Wow.
I couldn't keep my posture up, like, I was really suffering, and so for the last, like, 2.5 years, I've filmed my progress, and, boxing has great benefits for your physical body, but for mental health, building confidence and a self-esteem, it is one of the more aggressive fitness or sports out there, but it's almost kind of does this like reverse thing. It gives back to you like this thing of like, I can do it.
100%. And just the aggression that you can get out by
Oh
speaking.
man.
Nate and I were watching my husband and I were watching a movie last night, actually, the George Foreman movie
Oh yeah.
on Netflix.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where he's just like going crazy at the punch bag. I'm like, you know what? I miss that. You get so much aggression out. Whether you're punching it slow and hard or fast, the aggression that you can get out and like the feeling of strength that you have after you do that, I totally know what you mean.
Oh, it's just been my therapy. I mean, I do think there's a space for real therapy and sitting on a couch and talking through things, but I'm also not a huge fan of talking about my problems or regurgitating them as much. So I found that boxing and hitting that bag and moving that energy through my body was like therapy on like the fast track. And I was like, wow, like, so I do share a lot of that on my social media because I think everybody needs to do boxing, but because it just teaches you so much. It teaches you all kinds of things. And then, yeah, another thing that I started doing to build confidence lately, and this is just like a me thing, but I started going to church and having like my own spiritual connection and working on that
You were telling me about that.
and really like spending time doing that has also kind of given me this newfound confidence and strength that I really needed. So I should probably put all these things into practice and not answer texts back. And
Like, sorry, I'm in my boundary setting spiritual era.
yeah, practice a little bit. Yeah.
I relate with the boxing. Friends of ours have a kickboxing gym in Squamish, so I was introduced to it that way. And it's moving here. I haven't been obviously going to that as much, but I've been to Teddy's and I love the vibe. One thing that's very therapeutic for me, and people always say things sometimes, and they're like, "Oh, you're really careful about your food and your fitness and blah blah." It's like, it's not because I care as much about how I look. It's what it does for me.
Yeah.
Running is so therapeutic for me, especially running outdoors. I come up with some of my best ideas when I'm running.
Oh, 100%.
I'm like, "Hey Siri, write this note," because I don't want to forget it. Because as soon as that energy of like running and the endorphins kind of goes away, sometimes I forget a lot of all the great ideas I just had.
Yeah, it's like you're in the flow.
Yeah,
You're
it's a
running.
flow state. That's
It's
what
a
my
flow
husband said.
Yeah, doing all these things, I've had a hard time trying to articulate that as well because people are like, "Oh, well, your body's so fit." Yeah, but for me, it's not even about that. This is great and it's nice to be fit and healthy, but it's about creating a strong mind and a strong being.
Fitness
A
is
real
about mental
confidence at age
clarity.
42.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, not a false one at 20, right? You're like, you're out there like, you got your stilettos on out. You're like, yeah, I'm so confident out here, but you're not. Food, fitness, and all these things are such sleep. Okay, yeah.
Boundaries. Honestly, again, talking about confidence, you talked about when you lost your confidence through your divorce and that huge shift in life. We spoke at the beginning about how I've joined Toastmasters and I'm really trying to get myself back out there again from a speaking perspective. What happened when I went through the infertility and the miscarriage and all of that is I even before that, one of the reasons why I needed to get surgery in 2020 again was because I was 32 years old peeing my pants because the endometriosis was taking over my bladder. So, like, that was a huge confidence, like, a huge confidence issue that came out of that and something I was hiding. It wasn't something I was talking about to people. The first time it ever happened, I didn't even tell my husband. I was like, "What the fuck just happened?
Yeah,
Did I just pee my pants? I couldn't hold it? What happened?" Right? And then it kept happening. Anyway, so that was probably when my confidence really first started going down and then going through like trying to get pregnant and infertility. Your body's not doing what it was meant to do. It's not working the way everybody tells you it's supposed to work.
yeah.
And then you have a miscarriage, and that's a huge hit to your confidence again. And through that period of time, I really wasn't doing much workshops. I wasn't speaking as much anymore. I wasn't really going to that many events. I honestly started getting a lot of social anxiety. And then we moved here. I had to put myself out there to meet people, to meet friends, make friends. I didn't know anybody here. I started going to some of these events and putting my hand up to talk, and my heart would start racing and I would start sweating and I would forget what I wanted to say. I'm like, what's happened to me? I can't publicly speak very well anymore. At Quench, I went to a couple events and I went to say things and I would say what I was saying, but I didn't sound confident. I was kind of like shaking a bit. I sometimes tears would well up in my eyes. I'm like, what am I? I'm not talking about anything sensitive. Why am I tearing up?
It's the worst feeling in the world. Like,
It
I couldn't even imagine, because these are like the silent things that people can't see that you're going through. When something looks obviously out of place for people, it's different for people to understand, but you're like in this silent battle, struggle with what's going on. I understand. I don't understand going through that, but I understand what it feels like to not be able to speak. It's a really
it's
weird feeling when you're someone who used to do that all the time. It's a really scary feeling, I feel like.
It is really scary. You kind of think you've lost a part of yourself.
Yeah.
Like, well, maybe that's not who I am anymore. The first year that we lived here and the self-reflection and awareness that I really tried to work on and just making sure my life was in alignment with who I wanted to be, I know that I still want to write that book. I still want to advocate for people that have endometriosis. And, it can take up to 10 years to get diagnosed with endometriosis because it's still such an unknown disease. My second surgery was actually part of a research project at the Women's Pelvic Pain Center at BC Children's and Women's Hospital. I want to be able to advocate for that, but what in a bigger picture, I want to be able to share that you can have unapologetic growth and you can reinvent yourself and you can start a business and you can make it through so many different avenues of life and who you are with a chronic illness and still be successful, right? So I was like, I want to figure out how to public speak again.
I'm so glad you're back speaking. I really am. I'm so glad that you've made it through all that while building a business, moving, being married. Like, that's a lot to take on. You're speaking again and you're like having an impact for the world. And like, I'm a huge advocate for taking all the pain that we go through behind the scenes and turning it into power and helping other people. And that's why Girl Get Real is here. I was driving down here today, and this is like the second kickoff, right? And I've failed many times, and I've had really crazy dark times as well. Like, I haven't had a health challenge, but I think, going through a divorce felt like having my whole world
Everyone's
ripped
story is
out.
different, right? Everyone's story is so different. The way something affects you might be different than how it affects me. And nobody knows that, and nobody can tell you how to interpret it or how it feels because you have to figure out how it feels for you, and then you know how to move forward
Yeah,
with
and
it.
to be honest with you, I went through I didn't go through what you went through, like, I couldn't imagine, but I never thought I would talk again, and I didn't wanna talk again. A lot of the time, I remained silent. I did have a podcast dream, and, I go through my thoughts all the time of, like, am I even good enough to be talking? Yeah, am I even good enough to be talking on a podcast? Or have I even had enough life experience to even talk to everybody? And like, what do I know? And even driving down here today, I was super pumped, especially to meet you. I'm like, oh yeah, what's my why? What's my why for Girl Get Real? And you honestly just sharing that story is the why. Someone who's just gone through something like what you went through over the last couple of years, and to show back up and to use your voice again and to use it like publicly and like share your story with everybody. That's why we're here.
I love it.
Thank you
I'm
so much
that you had the confidence to follow through with this.
Oh,
And you know what? That's a big thing that I've been reading about is so many of us, doesn't matter how successful you are, you can be a friggin' billionaire and still have imposter syndrome. But the difference between people who become successful and people who don't, and success looks different to everyone, are the people that actually push through despite feeling like they might not know it all.
the resilience.
The resilience of it,
Yeah.
right? And just like the strength to be like, I'm gonna try it anyways. We'll see what happens,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Again, comes as you move through life in a big way and you go through different things. And watching other people, like, if they can do it, why can't I do it?
I often think we must be built different. Or sometimes I'm like, I got the dog in me. Because I'm like, the resilience is
Totally.
such a
It's a big
thing.
Aquarius
And
trait.
well, yeah, I think it is. Plus the
My hus
stubborn.
my husband and I are both Aquarius, and I'm gonna back up and say I never used to pay attention to this stuff. I used to be like, "Oh, it's so woo-woo, whatever," like, you know? But again, the older I've gotten and, like, the more experience I've gone through life, all of these things actually make sense. When you look at an Aquarius's traits or, like, we just went through that Aquarius Pisces moon thing, and I don't even know how to explain it all, but when I listen to other people on Instagram talk about what's happening and the traits of this season, I'm like, "That's me." I'm literally going through a shedding season. I'm literally going through this era of I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm gonna do it anyways. And that's what this whole moon thing was about, apparently.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I almost think if someone thinks I can't do it, it actually
Oh,
it
tell
it
me I
actually
can't.
yeah, someone tell me I can't. And I have had someone trying to tell me that I can't and also stop me from canting. And thank you to that person because that has actually motivated me to be like, well, not only am I gonna survive, I'm gonna come out better,
100%.
more happy,
I'm
and
gonna figure out how to make you so wrong.
watch me nay nay. I just I don't know how cheeky that's pretty cheeky, but it is motivation and it helps with resilience. Not everybody's built that way. Some people have softer lives, and that's okay.
That's okay.
But we're here and we're sharing the real stuff.
That is a really good point, actually, because we're getting into all the things in this episode. But I left home at 16. And that was because I was raised in a very religious household, and I was raised Jehovah's Witness, and I left that household and community at 16 years old, and that put such a fire under my ass because they're like, "You'll come back. Go figure it out, you'll come back." I've never looked back. I'm not gonna look back. I am the first person in my immediate family to graduate high school, to go to post-secondary. I I wanted to make sure I never had to go ask for help, and that is that, like, "Tell me I can't do it" trait,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Like surviving that in itself is something because that religion typically, like, you just get excommunicated.
Yeah, well, I did, yeah,
And
and I actually had a really great childhood, so I don't ever wanna say that.
no, but leaving the religion
But having to
itself.
leave it,
Yeah.
I went through major abandonment issues,
Yeah.
and I look back on the way I was in my 20s and stuff, and yeah, I did some things that I wasn't totally proud of, but it was because I was trying to figure out who I was, especially when I had nobody else,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And my parents are successful people. They, despite their own issues and not graduating school and having a lot of family trauma issues and stuff, they have become very successful, but we don't have a relationship because their religion doesn't allow
It
that.
doesn't allow it, yeah, and heading into the church, the last couple months, it was something that I was scared to share with friends. I'm been going to a Christian church, and I just recently got baptized, so, um, I'm new. I'm like a little baby. Um, no, but it's something that I've been worried to share because, organized religion doesn't always do, in my personal opinion, the right thing. And I don't think that God meant for someone to be exited out of the family if they weren't following the certain thing. But that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, it's a
But
whole other topic.
but I resonate. I think also how I felt really connected to you was you sharing that story because I grew up with a major abandonment wound that still kind of follows me today. It's not as strong, but I grew up without my mom. She's still around. She lives on an island close to here, but we don't talk. We haven't talked in 15 years. And she left when I was 8 months old. So I, like, missed out on, like, those, like, 0 to 6, like, foundational years that I think help,
It's a
create
huge
stability
time
for children.
of child's development.
Yeah, so I definitely, swirl around for years with, like, a victimhood mentality that I've changed, but back to the resilience and the confidence, I think what happened and how it even like fostered people pleasing was I always felt like if I do this good enough and if I succeed and if I'm like the best, then someone will love me. And I've had to unpack that and like get love more healthy way. But that's how it was for me in the teen years and in the 20s. And that's ultimately how I ended up in like a marriage where I was very codependent in and was always trying to get a love in an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
So
Someone love me.
someone love me, please.
I'm
Like,
not a bad
look
person.
what I do. Can't you see? I'm very successful and I'm this and I'm that. Like, don't you love me? And it's crazy when this. Honestly, this is why we have to take ownership of these things. No one has a perfect childhood, and no one has the perfect life, and we're all doing our best. But at the end of the day, I think what I learned and what I'm still learning and working on though is to thank those experiences and those people,
Exactly.
because without them, I wouldn't have been so cheeky to been like, well, watch me then, I'll do it.
Exactly.
Right? Like if someone didn't kind of push me out of that comfort zone or, challenge me, then I wouldn't be where I am today.
100%. Well, I know that everything that we do go through, as shitty as it can be sometimes, is how we grow and how we realize new things about ourselves, how we get to the next level. If you can look back at that, even sometimes it'll be years later and I'll look back at something and be like, that happened because of this.
Yeah.
Even as simple as in our business, sometimes when, it's time for us to break up with a client or a client is moving another direction. And at the time it's like, oh, that sucks or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But at
yeah.
the same time, a month or two later, something comes through the door and my husband and I look at each other and we're like, that's why that happened.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have had room for this client or this situation if
We were still
we
there.
were still dealing with all the nuances of this client.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to have that perspective. You have to have that open-mindedness and not just like put yourself in this little bubble and be like, this is as far as I can go or this is all that's meant for me.
It's hard when you're in it though. I think I was listening to a podcast one time and I think it was maybe Denzel Washington because he does a lot of motivational speeches. I could be wrong, but the point is when you're standing in the Empire State Building, you can't see it. But if you go a couple blocks away, you can see the whole building. And
That's a good analogy.
yeah, I thought it was great because I actually remind myself of that all the time because I can get really stuck inside of something and I have to pop myself out of it, kind of like Mel Robbins, like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 or
Yeah.
she's great. But like all these things that can just shift you out of things and kind of bring you back to a wider perspective. And then you can finally have an appreciation for all those lessons learned and then like have a radical acceptance of where you played your part. That you can't be mad at someone when you're like, well, they were just there to like sort of be there so that I could grow.
People come into your life. My aunt said this to me and I've heard it a few times, but like everyone comes into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And sometimes those people come into your life and it's really frustrating when they're leaving. But when you look back, you're like, that's why they were here.
Yeah. Well, anyways, to end it on a really amazing note, I'm so glad that you came into my life and I feel like it's definitely for a reason and a season. I can't wait to maybe do another episode with you down the road and hear more about like your branding business that you're working on.
Very excited. I'd love to come back on when I launch my personal brand and talk more about all this stuff because it's exactly what it's all about.
Thank you so much for watching Girl Get Real. Next up, we're going to have Nicole Crone from My Aligned Purpose on. So stay tuned for that episode. Please subscribe on Spotify, follow us on YouTube, and of course, Instagram.